Welcome, finalists, to episode 4 of The Vault. Today we're going to be having a discussion about Cashout and whether it can or cannot actually be a competitive game mode. I, as always, am Waltz, joined by Rio. How's it going, Rio?
It's going wonderful, and today's episode is sponsored by Halto. With Halto, you can risk it
Risk it
all.
all. And this podcast is also insured against spontaneous combustion, so make sure to go ahead and get your insurance from Halto as soon as you can, or something might happen.
Yep. And today's episode, as Walt said, is going to be focused on Cashout. There's been a lot of discussions recently about Cashout and really if it can be competitive. There's a lot of upsides and a lot of downsides to our current format, which was introduced late last season. So we just kind of want to go over everything and give our opinions on what's happening right now with the competitive Cashout scene. So let's kind of just dive into it, Waltz. Do you think that as Cashout is right now, is it competitive?
Yeah, so I think when we say, is it competitive, I think we're talking about kind of two separate things, right?
Yeah.
There is, like you said, there's a lot of people that have been complaining about Cash Out as sort of a competitive format, and a lot of that comes, there are two main avenues that people complain about. They complain about that in a ranked format. You know, we have our ranked tournament, and then we also have people complaining about it in a competitive tournament format. So I think we'll address both of those when it comes down to it. But I think my simple answer would be that yes, it can be a competitive format, but it does need some work. And I think the way that you fix it is different for ranked and tournament because those are two very different environments, and you have to approach them very differently. You can't do the same thing with both of them because they're designed for different things.
Yeah, and I'm basically in agreement that there is a way for this to be competitive and very viable, but there are small fixes that I would try and do, and I do agree that it's a separate discussion for what is in ranked and what is competitive, and I think that we're probably going to focus more on the competitive side because that's kind of where we are in the tournament side. I personally don't even play a ton of ranked. I think that it's just right now not the best mode. I like to stick to World Tour. And actually, this season I've probably played the most World Tour, so that I have, in previous seasons. So I think that just coming at it, I'm coming at it from more of a competitive standpoint for tournaments and what can be done in the future. And ranked will be kind of a separate discussion. So one of the things that I notice most in when I play is the fact that it seems to be really the top tier team is always there. They're always it kind of does filter up to the top where we see a lot of kind of the people that are really kind of the bully in the lobby does end up being the top one there. But what is interesting is that the bottom three teams always seems to be kind of random. And one of the things that I find both cool and a little frustrating is in that randomness. And let me kind of expand on that is that through the randomness, it can be a lot of fun. It can be a lot of fun from a viewer standpoint where you are watching your team, you're rooting for them, and they are barely making it, and then they end up stealing a cash out right at the end, and it bumps them up to second or even potentially first. Now, that's really cool, but on the opposite side of it, if you are really following a team, they're in second place, they've been really competitive the entire game, it seems like they have kind of the advantage or a really good chance of being into the next round. It can be kind of devastating to see that, hey, the last place team ended up stealing my team's chance of moving forward. So I think that is that's where I stand. I don't really think that I have a solution to it. I think that we will get to some of the potential solutions and fixes a little bit later that have been suggested from people a little bit more experienced in the competitive scene than me. But that's just kind of my take on it. That I think that it's at a really weird place. But yeah, I don't know if you want to kind of take it from there, Waltz. What are your thoughts? What do you feel?
I think I think I sort of want to break down the biggest issues that people give when they're talking about it. Like you said, the bottom three teams can often feel like a little bit of a toss up, but I think the reason for that is simply the nature of the first place team and the power that they have in the lobby. And so
Yeah.
when you talk to any high level players, that tends to be the biggest problem that they have. And you'll see this, and you see this a lot in clips. You'll see this every now and then in clips that get posted to Reddit and stuff like that of like a top level player who decides to just not wipe a team. They'll walk up and they'll start emoting next to a team and stuff like that, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, what's happening?" But it just makes sense because if you're the top team, because you have, for instance, plug meta. What is plug meta? Plug every time that you put a vault into a cash out, you get a large portion of the cash prize. So if you're just doing that every vault, you're going to get enough to probably qualify. And then if you get one cash out, you're almost guaranteed first place at that point. So consistently doing that incentivizes first place teams to just be mobile around the map. It in many ways encourages a sort of third partying. And again, this is talking about things from very much a competitive, like high-ranked standpoint. I think the game casually is actually in a very fun place right now. I think it's very enjoyable. I think most people aren't doing these sort of things. But when you have these high-level teams, your top team is going to get ahead early, and they are going to intentionally run across the map to a cash out they were not at, simply for the express purpose of getting the bonus from a team wipe, or maybe the plug if they got theirs in time, if they wiped the team they were facing at their first vault quickly, or just going for a last minute steal because they were faster ahead. There's a lot of reasons where the pace of the game, once you get that one team that has a cycle going, they're going to be far ahead. And so what you end up having is at the end of the game, generally the last cash out is often going to be a doubled cash out as you get to maybe one vault. Maybe there's two, But even in the situation where there's two, the first place team essentially gets carte blanche to just choose who goes through and who doesn't. And if they want you to not go through, it's going to be really, really hard to avoid that. You just kind of get stuck.
Yeah, and really just the plug meta makes things interesting, and just kind of going down to that last second kind of double cash out is really interesting. And I have been in lobbies where you even see the top tier team is in control of both cash outs at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So they have decided to just leave one, go for the other, get the steal, and because it basically guarantees them getting at least one. Now I've seen it,
Exactly.
definitely mess up and them end up losing both of them, but that's rare. So yeah, just kind of having, I'm phrasing them as kind of like the bully in the lobby, because it is, they have the potential to grief all the other teams. They have the potential to decide who they're going for, who they want to go forward. So that can mean that like they get to decide, hey, I don't want to fight the second place team. I want to fight the team that's been struggling to get any kills and make the last round just as easy as possible on me. And I think that that's wrong. I think that in itself is just kind of, it's just there's an issue with it. And I do think that there are some fixes that some people have suggested. If you want to dive into the fixes, or where do you want to go with this discussion next, Waltz?
Yeah, so I definitely want to kind of dive into the fixes of it, but I do think I want to just real quick kind of sum up I think the final idea I had on sort of why it's difficult. And I think, like you said, there's the randomness of it, but I think the frustration with that is it always feels good to come back as the fourth place team, as a lower place team. But I think what's weird about it is you want that to be based on you playing well, not the first place team deciding that you get to come through. And as the second place team who gets knocked down, you didn't get knocked down because you played poorly. You got knocked down because you were fighting multiple teams that were essentially on one team. And so that, I think, is in many ways the biggest thing to look at is how do you address that. And there's a lot of ways that's been suggested. There's been a lot of like ideas for how to fix that. A video that we want to highlight is a video by MatoTM, who did a really interesting video about some very sweeping changes. His was more focused on the ranked side of things, but I think there was still a lot to get there. One of the things that he suggested as well was changing it from a cash focused mode to a cash out focused mode. What I mean by that is basically instead of getting increasing money for the cash out the way it works now, essentially just have it an extended quick cash, but quick cash with two boxes. And the goal is, instead of to have the most money at the end, it's again get two cash outs, and once you get two cash outs, you qualify and you're removed from the lobby. And then you knock it down. It's like a normal quick cash match, one vault with 3 remaining teams, and then you're trying to go ahead and get your 2 cash outs. So it's just like an extended version of the final round, but with 4 teams and two boxes, which I thought was a really interesting suggestion.
Yeah.
And I was curious, so you also watched that video. What did you think about that suggestion?
Yeah.
Because it was a very, very extreme change, but I thought it was interesting to talk about.
Yeah, I really kind of liked it actually, because it does give every person in the lobby a reason to continue playing. It means that you haven't, it's not a numbers game. It's more of a, oh, I can get to 2. And I think one funny thing that he pointed out is like some people really do struggle with math. And like, I'm not kidding when I've been in several lobbies and it's like, I'm trying to figure out like, okay, do we need to go for kills? Do we need to get, okay, what do we need? We need 3 kills on top of getting this cash out. And I think that that's just frustrating. I think that I mean, it's kind of cool when you figure out like, hey, I have the math that knows that I'm going forward no matter what. But I don't like that. It is, kind of discouraging for people that are just getting started in this game or in this game mode and trying to figure out like, okay, I don't need to just accomplish X and Y. I need to accomplish X, Y, kills. I need to do this. On top of being a team-based game, I think that is just struggling. There really a potential to struggle for new people or even people that have been playing for like someone like me with 700 hours. I just think that I think that was the most exciting change to me because it seemed like just the reason to continue playing, the reason to continue fighting, and I'm all for that. I'm sure that people will probably disagree, but that's kind of my take. That's where I kind of feel based off of that.
Yeah, I agree. It was really interesting. I think for me, I definitely prefer the system we have now. I do kind of like those mid round calculations. I like mapping out your way to winning. You're like, okay, well, the way we have to win is we have to deposit a vault. We have to have that bonus. Things like that. I think those are really interesting. But I think there are other solutions that people have also suggested as well to kind of adjust the way you approach cash out. And some of the things that people have suggested are removing the ability to see combat scores live. That's something I know a lot of top players use consistently. When you deposit and you're sitting at your cash out, you can bring up the scoreboard and you can in real time see combat scores going up, and you can see who is fighting who, and you can then make a decision where to go on the map to handle that. You can say, oh, they're still fighting over the vault, or all 3 teams are currently at the other cash out. Let's just go 4th party. There's no reason not to.
Yep.
And that's one of the ways that these top teams control the lobby. Also, the ability to see who is dead, because you can see who's dead, and not even just when a team is wiped, but just individual players. You then ascend. You get to make these informed decisions on where to go on the map, knowing where roughly teams are going to be. That's 2 of like kind of the big changes that I've heard, and I think that applies to both ranked and competitive. Because you're going to have teams that are really dialing in on those nitty-gritty details. And then, of course, just adjusting the plug meta in general. That plug meta just would make each individual cash out matter more. I don't think it would do... I feel like in many ways the format just... It's hard to get away from king making in this mode, which is why...
Oh, that's a good way of phrasing it. Yeah.
Something I want to talk about later is sort of like how we can handle that. Again, focusing on a competitive side of things, I think ranked is a very messy discussion, but focusing on the competitive side of things, I think there's things that can be done. But one of the things I think was most fascinating to me was how the wipe penalty, I think, also caused a lot of these problems. And I like the current system. I like not losing a lot of money on wipe, because I think casually for most of the player base, that's a good thing. Because generally, if you are losing, you are going to continue to lose. And even though 30% or 40% or whatever it was, I think it was 30% at the beginning, that's not a lot of your small 5,000 sum. It does add up. And if you're continually getting wiped by the top team, then you're going to be at that final cash out. Even though that cash out is worth so much money, it's still not going to get you to second place if the top 2 teams have just been wiping you the whole time. So the fact that you lose less, I think, is more exciting and more interesting, and why a lot of people prefer World Tour as well, because there's no wipe penalty there at all. But on the very highest level, having a very low wipe penalty does incentivize the top teams to go for things they wouldn't otherwise, because it's easier when you're in top level lobbies and you're in coordinated teams to actually address that top team and focus on them more than you would in any other lobbies. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I think it caused the knock-on effect that was not expected.
Yeah, and I kind of liked it more, and I know I'm in the minority, and I know it doesn't benefit the majority of people, but I liked the really big team wipe penalty, mainly because it just made it more exciting. I felt more of a responsibility to play my life. I felt more tactical. I felt more just kind of. I don't know. I felt more of a rush, to be honest with you, like that. Oh my God, I can't wipe, or my impact on wiping a team was just so much more drastic. I I liked that, and I think that it does work better, kind of at high tier teams, because it's more focused on the combat. It's more focused on like actually getting the wipe and actually not getting wiped yourself, and I think that that can lead to just a different pace of a game than we have now. And I think from again, I try and do things from a viewer standpoint. Like if I'm watching a team play, I think that it's way cooler to see like they have one person left. He has to get this wipe. He has to go for it. Versus like right now where you have teams that okay, two people have down. I'm just going to jump off. I'm just going to wipe myself, and then have my team respawn to kind of get back into it quicker. And I don't know. I think that that is kind of where I want to see just kind of that large penalty come back, because I think that it does add more of an emphasis on playing as a team, wiping as a team, or getting the wipe as a team. But I don't know. That's my perspective.
Yeah.
But
I think it's very valid, and but I think what's interesting here is maybe we move into a very focused discussion on sort of the very because what we've talked about so far is in generally just the main issues with it. The teams not having to stay at their cash out, the ability of the top team to influence the game well after they've qualified, the fact that their movements around the map are very easy to they have easy decisions to make based on their the information they have available. There's a lot of flexibility with stuff, but and you and I both now have spent a lot of time spectating and casting and watching cash out matches. And one of the things that has been done, because Breakout did a round, like a cash out group stage. There were no eliminations with from cash out matches in that case, and that is something I do like. I like not having eliminations. Sometimes I think, especially with my smaller tournaments, I do have eliminations after group stages, but that's more of a time thing. I do think getting eliminated because of cash out matches generally feels bad unless you're playing enough of them. To at least feel like you've justified your time. But one of the what are some of the big ways that we've seen the competitive scene try to take cash out and turn it into a competitive mode?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I've seen is more of a focus on team wipes. I think that getting points for that, and on top of the cash that you've gotten out, and just kind of finding the right weight for each of those, the cash that you've gotten out, the team wipes, really kind of makes it more fair, kind of a more level playing field, because it does allow you to kind of build up a bank of points for achieving certain things, instead of just kind of absolutely just getting okay, we messed up on this map and kind of got screwed, for lack of a better term. So I think that that's what I'm thinking. Can you think of any other changes? I might be drawing a blank to kind of
and I think what you were saying there was the idea that the placement you get in the match, 10 points for first place, 7 for second, things like that. But then also, Breakout did for every 3 kills that your team got, you would get points. And that was in many ways a choice to curb that the last minute comebacks, and that king making aspect of things, where if you played really well and you were in second place and you got screwed by a last second steal by the fourth place team, you could still, if you were doing well, the points would still make you not fall too far behind. And I think that was quite interesting. So I know that was one of the big ways. And then the other big thing that has been done, obviously, is a focus on group stages. I don't think some of my early tournaments had cash out as elimination games. And that I very quickly got away from that. So I don't
Okay.
think we've seen any tournament do cash out that was not a group stage in a very long time. I don't think that's been done at all since probably like mid season three, because it is just it's not very. It's not a fun way to play the game, you know, like to get eliminated by that. So you gotta have a group stage. You gotta be giving incremental points. But I think that I do want to see cash out in a competitive
Yeah.
format. I think it's fun, and I think there's a lot of upsides, you know, to cash out.
Yeah, no, and I think you really hit the head on the nail because it's fun. Like there is something in the utter chaos of it. And even from a caster standpoint, there's so much that can happen. There's so many things that can change, so many variables that just totally just throw the entire narrative that you're trying to create into like a whirlwind. And I love that. I love that because it just builds excitement. And having 3 or 4 teams fight over one spot is absolutely chaotic, especially if you have all of the members up on one team, because it's really fun. And you know, from one of the things the finals does well is the destruction, the explosions, the just absolute chaos that can go into everybody diving onto one point. I love it. It reminds me of old Rush mode from Battlefield,
Yeah.
or the Battlefront. No, Battlefield. And it just kind of it's fun, it's chaotic, and I love that it doesn't happen every time as well. You know, it starts off kind of slow and it builds to this kind of crescendo that really gets me excited, and you know, hopefully the audience as well. So I would love to see this as a competitive mode because I think that there's a lot of just fun there. I think you said it perfectly, actually.
Yeah. There's a lot of excitement. One of the things that I know there have been not so much complaints, but feedback on when it comes to like watching the later final round, one team versus
Yeah.
one team matches, is that the way the game is structured right now, there's a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I don't mind the downtime. You
Mhm.
know, coming from a history of like watching MOBA games and things like that, I'm used to downtime. I like that build up, but a lot of people aren't huge fans of the downtime. They like the
Yeah.
consistent action, and I get that. But that's where cash out comes in, and there's almost never a moment in cash out to catch your breath. You know, we're
Yep.
casting, and I'd never shut up because the play by play never stops. You know, and so
Yep.
you can never get a word in edgewise, and
Mhm.
but that like you said, that makes it exciting to watch. It keeps things interesting right to the very end. Not that it's not always interesting to the very end with the
Mhm.
final round. I mean, just the nature of the game mode makes it so that you
Yeah.
can always have last minute flips, but there's always something there's always a story to be told in the game of cash out, as the
Yep.
mode itself. And I do think there are elements like I think most of what we've talked about is this idea that once you get past the first place team, it gets weird. But
Yeah.
I have noticed, and I know you said this as well, the best team does tend to win
Yep.
most of the time. And even if they don't always win, they win most of their games. And there's like I like cash out as a consistency check. Like,
Yeah.
can you play well in moment to moment fights? Sure, might be good at final round, but how good are you at just constantly being on your game? How good are you when everything is coming at you? And I like that as a proving ground to get to the final round. I think that's exciting for a tournament, and you don't have that in most other sort of like tournament formats.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and it definitely seems like most often the best team wins. And what we've seen really interestingly is in cash out games where we have I don't know, 4 teams that I have no idea which way it'll go. It's really close. It's almost down to the last second. You'll see all like the bottom 3 have like 15,000, so
Hmm.
you really don't know which way it's going to go. And I think that that's fun too, because it just kind of shows that yeah, this is a really good. I think you said it as like a good check, or a check and balance kind of for the game. And you're right. I think that for seeing who is top, who is competitive, it really does excel. So yeah, I think that that is an absolute upside, and I think that that also does kind of lead into the other upside, where I keep going back to from a viewer standpoint, allows for a massive comebacks to happen, where we really can see things that the bottom tier team. If you are rooting for your team, nobody loves an underdog story better than that. You know, it's like my team has struggled, my team has tried, they're still fighting. We know that they're really skilled players, but then it's kind of like, oh, they get beat up the whole match, but then in the last second they throw down the perfect dome shield. They throw up, the setup. They're all body blocking everything. They get the steal for 22,000, 30,000, whatever it's set to, and you love that. You absolutely love that. And from a caster point of view, I can really get loud. I can get hyped. I can get really really pumped because it's what you want to see.
Yeah.
You want to root for the bottom team. So yeah, I think that's really kind of an upside with kind of a little bit of a I don't know, a dagger to it, a little bit of a sharp side too.
Yeah.
Because on the flip side, you kind of have devastation if that's how
Yeah.
it plays out.
There's definitely some give and take to it. I think probably the biggest the final like point for me in its favor, and one of the reasons I'm probably never going to get rid of Cashout, is that it allows you to have a lot of games and a lot of teams, more so than you could normally. If you're going to run an event with 16 teams, that's going to be 8 games just to get through round 1. But you can do that in 4 with Cashout, and that's really nice. There's also like it's the time. The time is always the exact same. There's a lot of benefits, I think, from a pure organizational standpoint to Cashout, in that it's very set. You know how long it lasts. You can get a lot of teams, and especially when you're running like community stuff, or you want stuff that's interesting the whole time, and you want to get a lot of faces in there. It's better than just having 2 small teams. You can get a ton of recognizable people in the lobby, and you can also just kind of to run through that. And I think that's probably like that may be the least interesting argument to make for Cashout, but I think it's worth talking
That's
about.
important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I mean, especially because we have people that run tournaments that watch our show, and it's something to really kind of keep in mind on the overall, how are you choosing to run this, and even just for me, like how are your viewers going to want to watch this? I know for me, one thing that was interesting as I started kind of getting more into casting of this game, is I found it so challenging, so much harder than final round where it's 3v3 and you have those moments to take a breath and kind of give a explanation of what's happening, what's about to happen, but it's just so it was challenging for me when I getting started, but now that I do it more and have been involved in more tournaments, I love it. I think that I think it's really important to kind of keep that in mind as future people plan for tournaments. And honestly, for anybody that's watching, I'd love to hear your feedback. What do you guys feel? Do you all feel like it's fun to watch, or do you enjoy watching the 3v3 a little kind of more laid back? Let us know, because you will kind of help us decide what to choose for the future.
Yeah, and especially if you have maybe points that things that you may have that you say, oh, this is why it's not competitive, or maybe this is why it can work. Let us know. Sound off in the comments, because there's definitely there's a lot of nuance to this topic, and it's not something that I think we're able to fully cover in this episode, because like there's a lot of stuff we could end up repeating ourselves too much, and but yeah, definitely let us know. And before we kind of move on, I guess final question really, because once again, everything this year is all pointing towards the $100,000 major. And so I guess the big question is, should Cashout be in the major, right? Like, personally, I say yes, because I think it's emblematic of the game. I think it's a good marketing opportunity, and I think it's exciting. But I'm curious what your thoughts are.
So I'm divided. I honestly want to ask you clarification before I give my answer. Where do you want to see it? Do you want to see it as the one and only? This is the way that the tournament's played out. Do you want to see it in the starting round and then we move to the final round as kind of the final teams? What do you? How do you see it in the final in the major, at least?
I would really like to see a large round robin format. One of the things that Breakout did that I wasn't a huge fan of is when they did and there are organizational reasons for this. Some of that makes sense, but they did set groups, and so you would just play the same team over and over and over again. And there are positives to that. You get to know those teams, you get to know their weaknesses, but sometimes you get bad matchups. And I really some of my events I've done a full round robin. You only ever play a team once. I did a 16-team match. It was guaranteed you played every other team in the tournament, and you never played them again. And so it was the true consistency check because, yeah, you could have bad matchups, but then you don't have to play that person again.
Yeah.
I would like to see one of those. I don't want to see a full cash out tournament. I do think that would go poorly. I think people would be upset. I think, especially when, I mean, let's be honest, $100,000 is not the biggest tournament. It is not really that big of a prize pool. When we talk about prize pools, it is a lot of money, but it is not that big in the tournament, like when it comes to actual like esports prize pools.
Sure.
But people are still going to be upset if they get screwed last second and they do not get their prize pool. So that should not be part of it. I think it needs to be a qualifier. No team should be eliminated from it, but it should seed teams into an upper and lower bracket based on their performance in a cash out group stage.
Yeah. I literally have no notes on that. I think that you have laid it out exactly how I would feel like it would be done. I think that, yeah, it definitely can't be the decider, the be all end all of what, decides who gets 100,000. I think that is the way to do it, and I think it's a way to go through a lot of teams, get a lot of people in, and that's what you want to see. We have all these little tiny like communities right now of people that are getting behind teams, players, anything, and really just getting as many people into this as possible. And I think that doing that would be through cash out. So I agree with you, and I wish I didn't, so that I could add a little more to the conversation. But I think you really said it well. So that's kind of my take.
I mean, that's okay though, because you don't have to look far to find people that disagree with us. And speaking of, you've been very busy and you've been doing a lot of casting lately. And two events that I want to talk about are the recent Ruby Grind event, which was actually very interesting. There's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about with them, but you talked about that you casted the Ruby Grind event, and you casted the most recent Pro Hub Sunday tournament, both of which solely were final round 2-team matches the entire way through. So I think that was interesting. Both of the kind of like competitive groups right now have just eschewed cash out entirely. But can you tell us a little bit about those, kind of what you saw?
Sure, yeah. I'll start with the Ruby Grind event. Didn't plan on casting that. Just kind of, I saw Scroy was casting just some of the first games, and I was like, "Hey, dude, you want some help?" And that snowballed into me casting the games with him. One thing that I want to point out from that event, it was really fun, and I think that one thing that they did well is that their community had reached a new milestone. I believe it was 1,000 members, and they decided to host a tournament, but have no set teams for this tournament. So every person that signed up got randomly paired with their teammates. And I thought that was really fun because it allowed. For me, I've been in this for about a year now. I know a lot of the teams, a lot of their composition, and to just kind of throw that to the wind and say, "Hey, you're going to play with people of all skill levels, all talents," was really cool because I went into it with no expectations, no kind of just. No planned like this team is going to end up winning, and it really let for a nice organic way of letting the top tier teams kind of get filtered to the top. I think that it also helped create new teams, new friendships. I would say constantly throughout the event that you guys played great. Y'all should really continue playing with each other, because I felt like that's what it was building for. It was building just teammates, and it was a great way for a community to kind of get involved with their kind of community, get everybody in there involved and feel like hey, I might not be the best player, but I can still play with it. That was just kind of my quick overview. I got to cast with Scroy, who's a great player and really kind of just added a lot to the commentary as well. I think one of the things that I want to point out, I try to point out during my casting, is that I'm not a professional player. I'm not somebody that's in it to try and be the top tier. I'm more in it because I love the meta of the game. I love kind of just the game itself, and I think that it is important to have the differing views from somebody that tries to play it at a professional level versus somebody that doesn't. So it was really fun to work with Scroy and also Sonsoyo, who fits the exact same mold of that for the Pro Hubs. But so that was just my kind of quick overview of the event. And did you get to watch any of it? Did you have any thoughts on kind of what went on?
I did get to watch a bit of it. I thought it was. I watched mostly kind of the last series as well, which I thought was a fantastic series. I don't know if the VOD is still up, but we did link it on our previous episode, so you should go and check that out. Daniel, the sword user, I believe, pulled out a win Um,
Yeah.
that looked super exciting. So I bet that had to
Yeah.
have been really fun, and it was neat to like again. That probably would never have happened in an event
Mhm.
where teams signed up as like groups because
Yep.
I mean, and the team that was playing against them, I can't remember all who was on that. I remember I think Billy
Mhm.
Foxtrotty was on it. Like some players I knew,
Yeah.
and you could see them adapting to the sword, but there was definitely
Hmm.
a lack of the cohesion that you and I have gotten used to with the very top teams, and
Yep.
I don't know that a sword user could have pulled that off in say a breakout event.
No. And they really did try and counter him. They threw down glitch grenades so he couldn't dash. There were several times that they chose to do the suspended structures. Well, not chose. They chose a map that would have the potential for suspended structures, and I think we got it 2 times in the final
Wow.
matchups. And just everything to really counter him, and they couldn't do it. And so it was so exciting to watch. And I feel bad for focusing so heavily on David during the casting and everything, but it was the person to watch. It was the fun, exciting thing. And even hilariously, I recently been playing games, and I even said to like a light user that was using the sword, I was like, "Are you David?" And he's like, "No, but I love David." So it has this impact on the community and just kind of a ripple effect because it was fun. And I completely agree that uh, any other event that didn't have random teams, this probably wouldn't have worked out. But you never know. I really got to give David a lot of credit because he worked with his team and was able to really kind of pull some stuff off that I didn't think would work. So
Yeah.
really fun to see. And yeah, hopefully that VOD's still up because definitely go check it out. I think it's on Tapor. Discord or
Twitch channel. Yeah.
Twitch channel. But yeah, just overall, really fun event. I'm glad that I got to meet a lot of the people at the Ruby Grind Discord because they're doing some really fun stuff there. So yeah, just overall really fun event. And yeah, then the next week I ended up doing the Pro Hub Sunday #4 with Sonsoyo. Um,
Shout out to
and
Sansoyo as well.
yeah,
Fantastic analyst and a great caster.
absolutely. And yeah, that is same thing that I can say about Scroy. It was really fun to just kind of pick Sonsoyo's brain. We talked a lot about kind of the what the meta is. One thing that he kind of really was pointing out to me that I hadn't seen in previous tournaments was the kiting meta. And it
Hmm.
seems like that is the kind of prevalent meta
Yep.
amongst 3v3 players. And for people that don't know, well, so why don't you give kind of an overview of what the kiting meta is right now?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing about the kiting meta and the idea behind it is that it is so easy to delay cash outs right
Hmm.
now. If you're heavy, you have C4. If you're a medium, you often have DMAT. If you're a light, you're going to use stun gun. You can use breach charge. Some people run that. There are a million and one ways for you to delay cash outs. You can do that by a variety of reasons. You can throw stuff at it. You can drop it down. You can set it up. And so the idea for these teams is once you get a vault started, or once you get a cash out started, and once you're going, if you can't take them out at range, if you lose one or two players, because coins are still fairly plentiful,
Hmm.
when you lose a player, you disengage entirely unless you feel like you have an overwhelming advantage, and you basically just you kite them around. You just run around, and you wait for your guy to come back. And if they eventually, the problem is that eventually the aggressing team has to go for the cash out. They have to
Yeah.
steal it. It's an objective based game. You
Hmm.
must do that. And so the longer you can prevent them from going for the objective and just running after you, if they fail to catch you and stagger your team, then you've burned another 30 seconds of the 2 minute timer, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden they only have 30 seconds left and they have to steal no matter what, and then you're in a 3v3 situation and you can throw your bodies at it and it doesn't matter if you die. So the kite meta is definitely a prevalent part of 3v3s, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's not going away anytime soon, I think.
No, no. And, as much as I am not a huge fan of it, it did make things interesting because you could just see how teams were trying to react to it and counteract it. And it did lead to some really kind of last second dives onto the cash out to try and steal it. And just, it's interesting how the meta is evolving around that. And yeah, I agree with you. It's not going anywhere. But Overall, it was just a really kind of cool event, and funny enough, it came down to it where it was the Goats versus Saints One, and the fun part about Saints One is that it was actually Mickey in MexKX. Check out our last episode if you haven't don't know who that is, and. It was really cool to see one of the tournament organizers be in it and make it to the last round, and honestly go back and watch that game, the last 3 games for those teams, because it was really close. It came down to just the very end of both games. We made it all the way to the, I think, 5th map. Just really fun matches, and genuinely, I hope people that have made it this far in our podcast go and watch them if you haven't. I assume if you've probably made it this far, you might have even watched them already. But just really fun games. If you want to see kind of how the meta is playing out in this kind of season right now, we are seeing just a lot of teams running light, medium, heavy. We are seeing that light is viable. One interesting thing that they did do in that tournament was they banned more than one use of the grenades.
Yep.
Grenades are very powerful. Why don't you talk about why? Why would they ban only one? Why would they only allow one person to run nades?
Yeah, nades have been banned since I want to say mid-season 4, and not fully banned, but only one person can run nades, and the
on pro hubs,
on pro hubs specifically, not everything. Various groups have done different things with various tournaments, but yeah, pro hubs specifically have been doing that, and the reason for that is because nades are, especially you get 2 charges of them, and if you run 2 or 3, I mean that's 4 grenades that are just chucked into the area, and the entire meta for a while revolved around waiting, chucking your nades, chucking your RPG, whatever you have, and the second you get a big hit, you just go all out. You hit the gas and you run at them. And I mean, one nade, it doesn't split the damage. If you get a good nade, especially with how it's grouped up teams will often be, you're going to be dealing 300 damage to the entire team. And so that's the real that's the big reason why nades are limited now, because if you're going to chuck 6 nades into an enemy team, you're going to deal so much damage, and then it just turns into a who gets caught in a corner and can't get away from a grenade, and that's not super interesting to watch. Teams just chuck nades at each other and wait for cooldowns to chuck more nades at each other until finally one of them hits, and then they go and fight.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, there's no indicator. It makes such a small noise that it's hard to hear amongst all the other chaos.
Yep.
You have a wall that breaks down and a nade that goes off at the same time. You're going to hear the wall over the nade. And just having the ability to do 2 of them back to back is just devastating. So yeah, it makes sense. And it's funny too, because I've talked to several players about, what would you change, what is the fix, and overwhelmingly the fix is just allow just one nade. Why am I allowed 2 nades that do 149 damage, 150 if you're really lucky, and I only get 1 Molotov or 1 pyro grenade? It doesn't make sense.
Feels backwards.
And it does. So yeah, maybe we'll see that change, but just going back to just the overall discussion of the events, both of them were just a ton of fun. I really hope that you guys check out the VODs, because right now we are just seeing kind of how Season 5 is playing out, where top teams are ending up, how they're playing, and really just I love that I got to cast them and really be a part of them. So I do know that Ruby Grind is working on another tournament coming up sometime in the next month or so, and if by the time we're editing this video there's more details, we'll try and put them on screen, or at least in the discussion. And I know that Pro Hubs is trying to do events basically every Sunday, try and get something in. So definitely check out the Pro Hubs as well. I know that they'll have kind of a lot going on, and I guess, Waltz, you want to kind of lead us into what other events going on, especially one that seems really near and dear to your community.
Yep. The lot of stuff happening. February is going to be a bit stacked. It's going to a lot of things are going to go happening. First and foremost, there's an event that will be finished by the time you watch this podcast, so try to check out the VODs when that happens. But I am running a melee only tournament. I'm excited about that one. I did a lot of testing, hosting some customs, getting some people in, running only melee, figuring out what works, what doesn't. I found a couple fantastic servers. Shout out specifically to Riot to Diamond and his melee grinders Discord, who are entirely focused on the melee side of things. They're hosting their own events. Pretty much every Saturday they host small tournaments. So give them a shout out, watch their stuff. But I am doing a melee only tournament. I think it actually stands a chance to be competitive. I think it'll be quite interesting to watch, and we'll see. You know, it's a very underexplored side of the game, so that's happening. Yeah, so that's going to go on. Then the following week, so beginning on the 2nd, and then going over the course of 3 weeks, Gunbuck is going to be hosting an event. He has 8 teams. It is going to be a final round, just 2-team, single elimination bracket for, I believe, around a $300 prize pool.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah. So he's gonna be running that over the next few weeks. We will be dropping links to that. Go ahead and check him out. It's gonna be it hasn't done anything like this before. He's been doing a lot of videos. You have to go check his stuff out. He's quite fun to watch. But remains to be seen. I'm excited to watch what he does because I think it's gonna be a really fun event.
Yeah, definitely. And looking over the list, it seems like he has a lot of cool people from his community, on top of a few people that we might recognize. So it should be a really fun event. And yeah, I'm as well looking to see how the Gunbuck tournament plays out. I think you know more about this one than I do, but there's a Powershift tournament going on.
Yes, so Big Bad Beaver, who we will also drop links to. I'll be honest, I hadn't heard about him before very recently, but he is doing a $500 Powershift tournament. Wow. I believe on either the 8th or the 15th. You will see above my head when the actual date is as we edit this. But that's going to be happening in the next few weeks. People like Sanguine, Ploparn, Thixie. I don't believe Neon Gus is in it, but a lot of like your big content creators, people like Lycommit are in it. Cool. A lot of really good players, a lot of big content creators. And yeah, it's gonna be a Powershift tournament. So I hosted a Powershift tournament months ago. Had an absolute blast with it. It is a unbalanced, chaotic game mode. Although the finals, if you check it out on my channel, the finals with the last 2 teams, it was pretty close. It actually went to a game 3. It's a fun mode when you get 2 really good teams, and I think you could have some fun with it. But so that's happening in a few weeks. And then the last thing I'm going to throw out as well is on the next weekend. I believe the second, maybe the first or second. It's the next first Sunday in February. I'm going to be hosting an event for Diff, one of the clans. One of the clans has gotten together and are playing the game. You can check out it is a in-house event, but it will be streamed, so you can go ahead and check that out and watch some more competitive finals because that's really what we're here to is make sure that everybody knows what's happening.
And honestly, that's a lot. Yeah, next month is going to be awesome, and I'm sure that our next episode, when we film it, will probably be mid some of these events going on, so we will definitely dive into this more, and I can't wait. I honestly, your Melee tournament is super exciting. I can't wait to see how that turns out. And just the prize pools that are going on with all the events, really kind of cool. I'd love to see the community just get kind of involved and excited like this, because it definitely seems like we're kind of dialing the notch up on all these people wanting to get involved and get tournaments going. So I'd love to see it.
Yeah, no, a lot of happenings. Things are really picking up, which is what we hoped for. I want to take a quick moment before we kind of wrap up, but I want to say thank you to everybody who watched the last couple episodes. A lot kind of bigger response than I expected, and we really appreciate it. It's been really neat. We're going to try to really make this a place where you can know everything that's happening on the competitive side of the game, have some discussions like this, do the interviews, and make sure that you know what's going on. But thank you for listening, and keep us updated. Any ideas you have, any things you think could be done better, let us know in the comments. We appreciate all of it.
Yep, absolutely, guys. And yeah, just feel free to reach out to Waltz or I on Discord, through YouTube, really any way that you want to get a hold of us if we don't know about something that's going on, because this is more for the community than it is for us. So if you have stuff to add, let us know. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say for today. Do you have any final words, Waltz?
I think we're all set. I am looking forward to seeing how Embark continue to address Cashout as we move forward, and I'm excited to see what all these events are. So stay tuned. Keep your eye, subscribe if you haven't, so you can get notified the next time we drop a podcast episode. But we'll be back soon, and we'll be right here waiting for you.
Yep. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.